Marcus Webb had learned three essential rules during his time aboard the Nexara Star Fortress. Always double-check power connections before sealing panels, never question why Velen technology hummed melodically, and absolutely never venture above Deck 12. The fourth rule, don't accidentally grab an alien queen's backside, hadn't been covered in his orientation, probably because no one imagined it was necessary. Yet here he was, running through corridors he'd never seen, responding to an emergency summons that had yanked him from the comfortable familiarity of the engine room. The alarms weren't the standard drill tones he'd grown accustomed to over 3 years of service. These were sharper, more urgent, accompanied by the fortress's actual structural groaning, a sound that made his stomach clench. All technicians to emergency stations. Asteroid storm has caused critical structural damage. Repeat, critical damage. Marcus clutched his tool kit tighter and pushed himself to run faster. The lower deck corridors gave way to transitional zones, and then suddenly he was somewhere else entirely. The walls here weren't the practical gray metal he knew. They were crystalline, refracting light into rainbow patterns that shifted with each step. The floor vibrated gently beneath his feet, almost like a heartbeat. Even the air smelled different, sweet but electric, like ozone mixed with flowers he couldn't name. He found his team leader at a junction point, a harried-looking woman who barely glanced at him before pointing down a corridor that glowed with soft purple light. Webb, Section 7 Alpha, power conduits are scrambled. Fix them before the whole deck loses life support. That's the royal wing, Marcus protested. You've never let me down either. Go. Marcus went. The royal corridor was even more surreal than the transitional zones. Crystal walls displayed scenes that might have been windows or might have been screens. He couldn't tell. Velen guards stood at intervals, their elongated ears adorned with rank insignia, their expressions unreadable as they watched him pass. He felt like an intruder in a sacred space, which, technically, he was. He found the damaged section quickly enough. A panel had blown open, revealing tangled energy conduits that sparked and hissed. Standard repair work, he told himself. Just focus on the job. Ignore the fact that these cables probably powered the Queen's personal chambers. Ignore the guards watching his every move. Ignore the growing sense that he was very, very far from where he belonged. Marcus knelt, opened his kit, and got to work. The Velen energy system was elegant but complex. Harmonic frequencies had to be balanced precisely, or the whole thing would cascade into failure. He'd learned the basics over 3 years, enough to be competent, enough to be trusted with emergency repairs. His hands moved methodically, reconnecting cables, testing frequencies, rebalancing harmonics. Sweat trickled down his temple. Almost done. Just a few more connections and the fortress lurched violently. A secondary impact, maybe a delayed asteroid strike. The floor tilted, the walls shuddered, and Marcus lost his balance entirely. His tools scattered as his body pitched forward, arms windmilling desperately for purchase. And then he saw her. Queen Valera was walking down the corridor, probably heading to assess the damage herself. Silver hair flowing, purple cloak billowing, every inch the regal sovereign. She was close, too close, directly in his trajectory of inevitable embarrassment. No, 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 no. Marcus's brain screamed the word even as his mouth failed to form it. His hand shot out, grasping for anything to stop his fall. Fingers closed on fabric, silky, expensive fabric. The Queen's cloak. But momentum was a cruel master, and his hand slid down past the fabric to the warm, solid form beneath. For one eternal second, his palm rested against the curve of her backside. Then time resumed its normal pace with brutal efficiency. Marcus yanked his hand away so fast he nearly dislocated his shoulder. He stumbled backward, crashed into the opposite wall, and slid down it until he sat on the floor, face drained of all color. Queen Valera turned. Marcus had seen pictures of her, of course. Her portrait hung in every common area of the fortress. But photographs couldn't capture the reality. The luminescent quality of her skin, the way her violet eyes seemed to hold galaxies within them, the elegant length of her ears that marked her as Velen royalty. Right now, those ears were flattened back against her head, and those galaxy eyes were blazing with fury that could ignite stars. You, her voice emerged as barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of storms. Guards materialized instantly. 6 of them, harmonic blades drawn, the weapons humming at frequencies that made Marcus's teeth ache. They surrounded him in a perfect circle, blades pointed at vital organs he'd rather keep intact. On your knees, human. The guard captain's voice cracked like thunder. Marcus was already there, having not quite made it back to his feet. He raised his hands in surrender, the universal gesture of absolute capitulation. Your Majesty, he stammered. The corridor shook. I lost my balance. It was an accident, please. I swear it was an accident. Silence. The Queen's command cut through his babbling like a blade. Marcus silenced. She stepped closer, and even terrified as he was, Marcus couldn't help but notice the grace in her movement. She studied him the way a scientist might study an unexpected specimen, with intensity and a hint of disgust. Do you have any idea what you've done? Her voice was low, controlled, but beneath the control lurked something explosive. I touched you, Your Majesty, inappropriately, accidentally but inappropriately, and I am so deeply sorry. Not because I fear death, though I do fear death quite a lot actually, but because you're a person, and no person deserves to be touched without consent, queen or not. And I violated that, and I'm sorry, truly sorry. The words tumbled out in a rush, falling over each other in their haste to escape. Marcus knew he was rambling, knew he should probably shut up, but terror had loosened his tongue and his brain had apparently taken a vacation. The guard captain stepped forward. Your Majesty, the punishment for touching the royal person is death. Say the word and we'll end this creature. Marcus's heart stopped, actually stopped for a beat before remembering it had a job to do. But Queen Valara held up one elegant hand, and the captain froze mid-motion. She was studying Marcus again, her head tilted slightly, those long ears no longer quite so flat against her skull. Something in his rambling apology had caught her attention, though he couldn't imagine what. Your name, mechanic. Marcus Webb, Your Majesty. Lower deck repair crew. Engine specialist mostly, though I handle general maintenance when needed, and apparently royal corridor emergencies when asteroids hit, which is how I ended up here, which is how this whole terrible situation. Marcus Webb. She interrupted his rambling, speaking his name slowly, as if testing how it felt on her tongue. And you apologize not for touching royalty, but for touching a person without permission. Marcus blinked, confused. Yes. I mean, that's the real crime, isn't it? You being queen doesn't make the violation worse. You being a person makes it wrong in the first place. Another pause. The guards exchanged glances, clearly unsure what to make of this strange human who faced death but concerned himself with philosophical distinctions. Take him to the detention wing, the Queen said finally. The captain stepped forward eagerly. And the execution, Your Majesty, will be decided after I've had time to interrogate him, privately. But Your Majesty, did I stutter, Captain? The captain bowed so low his nose nearly touched the floor. No, Your Majesty, it will be done. Marcus found himself hauled to his feet, hands bound behind his back with some kind of energy restraint that tingled unpleasantly. As the guards marched him away, he risked one glance back. Queen Valara stood in the corridor, surrounded by crystal rainbows and purple light, her expression unreadable. But her ears, those long, elegant, distinctly Velen ears, were no longer flat with fury. They were tilted forward slightly. Marcus didn't know enough about Velen body language to interpret it, but he filed it away as possibly significant. If he survived long enough for significance to matter, the detention wing awaited, and beyond it, whatever fate the Queen would decide. Marcus Webb, engine mechanic, had accidentally groped a queen. His mother would absolutely kill him. If the Queen didn't do it first. The detention cell defied every expectation Marcus had formed from a lifetime of Earth prison movies. No cold concrete, no metal bars, no distant echoing screams. Instead, he found himself in a room with crystalline walls that pulsed with soft lavender light, a bed that looked more comfortable than anything in his regular quarters, and ambient harmonics that were almost soothing. If not for the locked door and the fact that he was awaiting probable execution, it might have been pleasant. Marcus sat on the bed, running through his situation for the 100th time. He'd touched the Queen. The Queen. Not just any part either, but definitely the worst possible part. Sure, it was an accident, but did that matter in a society where royal protocol was sacred? He'd seen how the guards reacted. This wasn't a minor offense. This was potentially execution-worthy. The cell door chimed before sliding open, and Marcus jumped to his feet, half expecting executioners. Instead, a Velen woman entered, her copper-toned ears adorned with small silver studs, her green eyes sharp with intelligence. She carried herself with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. "Marcus Webb," she said, pronouncing his name like a clinical diagnosis. "I am Seraphina, chief advisor to Queen Valara." "Ma'am." Marcus managed something between a bow and a nod. "Am I being executed now, or is this a preliminary step?" Such fatalism, very human. Seraphina settled into a chair that seemed to grow from the floor to accommodate her. "Sit down, we have much to discuss." Marcus sat, perched on the edge of the bed like a student called to the principal's office. "I've reviewed the security footage," Seraphina continued, watching him with unsettling intensity. "The corridor did shake, you did lose your balance, your hand did land where it landed. Accidentally. Yes, accidentally, that much is clear." She leaned forward slightly. "What's interesting isn't the accident, Marcus Webb. What's interesting is your reaction to it." "My reaction? I panicked. That seems pretty standard." "You apologized for violating her personhood, not her royalty. You expressed concern for having disrespected her as an individual, not for having broken protocol." "That's unusual." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. It seemed like the important part. "To you, perhaps. Most people, Velen or human, in your position would grovel about the royal offense, beg for mercy based on accident, plead ignorance of customs. You did none of that. You treated her like a person first." Seraphina's ears twitched in a way Marcus was beginning to associate with intense interest. "Tell me, how do you see our queen?" The question caught Marcus off guard. "How do I see her? I mean, she's the queen. She rules like 17 star systems or something. She's powerful, clearly intelligent, obviously beautiful, in a very royal, untouchable way, I mean, not that I was thinking about that when I touched her, which I didn't mean to do." "You're rambling." "Sorry, nervous habit. Stop being nervous and answer honestly. How do you see her?" Marcus took a breath, forcing his scattered thoughts into order. "I see a person carrying an impossible burden. Someone who's probably been lonely for a very long time because everyone around her wants something. Power, favor, alliance, whatever. I see someone who maybe forgot what it feels like to be treated as just a person rather than a symbol or a prize." Seraphina was silent for a long moment, her ears doing that twitching thing again. "Interesting," she finally said. "Wait here. The Queen will want to speak with you herself." "I can't exactly go anywhere. Velen humor is more subtle, work on yours." She rose and glided toward the door. "Seraphina," Marcus called before she could leave. "Yes. Am I going to die?" She paused, looking back at him with something that might have been sympathy. "That depends entirely on what the Queen sees when she looks at you. Based on our conversation, you might have a chance. Don't waste it." She left, and Marcus was alone again with his thoughts and the softly humming walls. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt strange in the crystalline cell, stretching and compressing in ways that disoriented him. He tried to rest but couldn't. Tried to plan what he'd say, but every script seemed inadequate. How do you apologize for accidentally groping a queen? Hallmark didn't make cards for that. When the door finally chimed again, Marcus's heart rate spiked. But the figure that entered made him freeze in surprise. Queen Valara stood in the doorway, and she looked different from before. Gone were the elaborate royal robes, the crown, the heavy jewelry. She wore a simple dress in deep blue, her silver hair pulled back in a loose braid, her ears adorned with only small silver hoops. She looked younger, more approachable. Almost human if not for those distinctly pointed ears. Marcus scrambled to his feet and bowed deeply this time. "Your Majesty, I—" "Sit down, Marcus Webb." He sat. She entered fully, the door sliding closed behind her, and took the chair Serafina had occupied. For a long moment, she simply looked at him, those violet eyes studying his face with an intensity that made him want to squirm. "You're terrified," she observed. "Yes, Your Majesty. Good. At least you're not stupid." A ghost of a smile crossed her lips before disappearing. "Serafina tells me you said interesting things about me. I spoke honestly, Your Majesty. Call me Valara, at least while we're here in this cell with no audience." She settled back in the chair. "You've already violated the highest royal protocol by touching me. Using my given name seems minor in comparison." All right, Valara." The name felt strange on his tongue, too intimate for the circumstances. "Tell me again what you told Serafina about how you see me." Marcus swallowed hard. "I see a person. A woman carrying the weight of an empire on her shoulders. Someone who's probably surrounded by people all the time but still lonely because no one sees her. They see the crown, the power, the symbol. I see someone who deserves to be treated with respect not because she's royal but because she's a person." Valara was quiet, her expression unreadable. Then, "Do you know how long I've been queen?" "No, I don't." 30 years. I inherited the throne at 25 when my mother was assassinated. 30 years of ruling, of making decisions that affect billions, of being the symbol you mentioned. She looked away, toward the glowing wall. In all that time, no one, not a single person, has ever apologized to me for anything by acknowledging my personhood first. They apologize for offending my station, my title, my crown, never for offending me. "That seems backwards," Marcus said quietly. "It is, but it's also all I've known." She turned back to him. "You're a strange human, Marcus Webb." "So I've been told, repeatedly. I can imagine." Another almost smile. "What should I do with you?" "I'd prefer not to be executed if that option's available, but I understand if protocol demands otherwise." "Protocol demands your head, literally. The touching of a royal person by a commoner, especially in such intimate areas, is traditionally punishable by death. Slow death, actually. Something involving harmonic frequencies that liquefy internal organs." Marcus felt his face go pale. "That's graphic. Velen tradition is very specific about punishments." "Noted, really, truly noted." Valara laughed, a sudden, surprising sound that seemed to shock her as much as him. "You make jokes when facing death. It's a coping mechanism, possibly a flaw. My mother says it's a flaw. Your mother might be right." But she was smiling now, really smiling, and Marcus noticed how it transformed her face. The cold, regal mask softened into something warm, almost playful. "I'm not going to execute you, Marcus Webb." Relief flooded through him so intensely he felt dizzy. "Thank you. Really, thank you. I promise to never accidentally touch any royal body parts ever again. In fact, I'll stay so far from royalty you won't even know I exist." "That would be a shame." Marcus blinked. "I'm sorry. I said that would be a shame." Valara stood, smoothing her simple dress. "Because I'm releasing you on one condition." "Anything. Well, almost anything, within reason. What condition?" "Tomorrow evening you'll dine with me, in my private garden. You'll tell me about Earth, real stories, not diplomatic reports. You'll tell me about your family, your home, your life, and you'll continue to speak to me as a person." Marcus stared at her, utterly lost. "You want me to have dinner with you after I grabbed your—" "Yes, after you grabbed my ass, which we're never going to speak of again, by the way. That incident will be stricken from all records, the guards sworn to secrecy on pain of death, and if I ever hear anyone mention it, I'll know you spoke and I'll reconsider my lenient stance." "Understood." Complete silence, taking it to my grave, which hopefully won't be soon. "It won't be, provided you show up tomorrow evening." She moved toward the door. "Kevris will fetch you and bring you to the garden. Try not to fall on anyone on the way. That was one time, memorable time though." She paused at the threshold, and Marcus, "Yes, thank you for seeing me." She left before he could respond. Marcus sat in the empty cell, trying to process what had just happened. He'd groped a queen, faced execution, and somehow ended up with a dinner invitation. Either he was the luckiest human alive or the universe had a very twisted sense of humor. Possibly both. The palace gossip machine operated at faster-than-light speed, which Marcus found ironic given that actual faster-than-light travel still eluded both human and Velen scientists. By the time Kevris fetched him from his new quarters, real quarters, not a cell, the next morning the entire fortress was buzzing with rumors. "You're famous," Kevris announced cheerfully, barging in without knocking. He was young for a Velen, with spiky black hair that seemed almost rebellious and a perpetual smirk that Marcus was beginning to find oddly comforting. Famous or infamous? Depends on who you ask. The engineers think you're a legend. The royal guards think you should be executed. The kitchen staff has a betting pool on whether you'll survive the month. Kevris threw himself onto Marcus's bed. "My money's on survival, by the way. The Queen seems to like you. She nearly had me killed. But she didn't. That's significant. Trust me, I've been in this palace for 15 years. Valara doesn't spare people she doesn't find interesting." Marcus pulled on the outfit Kevris had brought, a deep blue ensemble in Velen style that felt simultaneously comfortable and foreign. "Why does she find me interesting? I'm a mechanic." "Exactly. You're a mechanic who treated her like a person. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Kevris sat up, suddenly serious. "Everyone wants something from her. Power, alliances, marriage contracts, trade agreements. You wanted nothing except to apologize for disrespecting her dignity. That's new. It just seemed like the right thing. The right thing is often the rarest thing." Kevris stood, checking Marcus over with a critical eye. "You'll do. Try not to spill anything on yourself, or on her, especially not on her. Touching her ass once might be forgiven. Spilling soup on her would be war. Your encouragement is overwhelming." "I try." The journey to the Queen's private garden took them through parts of the fortress Marcus had never imagined. They passed a room where Velens manipulated holographic equations through song, actual melodic calculations that made his brain hurt trying to comprehend. Another chamber contained what Kevris called a memory grove, plants that stored and replayed historical moments through bioluminescent patterns. But the garden itself stole his breath. Water droplets hung suspended in the air like liquid stars, each one catching and refracting light into tiny rainbows. Trees with transparent trunks revealed internal energy flows in pulsing patterns. Flowers grew inverted, their roots reaching toward the sky while their blooms dangled downward. The air smelled like nothing Marcus could name, sweet, electric, alive. And in the center of this impossible space, that last observation surprised Marcus most of all. "You came," she said as he approached. "You invited me. Also, I was told declining a queen's invitation was possibly treasonous." "It's not. I was testing whether you had spine enough to refuse me." She gestured to the chair opposite hers. "Clearly you don't. Or I was curious." "Curious about what?" "About you. About why a queen who could have killed me wants to have dinner with me instead." Valara settled into her chair with grace that made Marcus feel like a lumbering bear. "Perhaps I'm curious too, about humans, about you specifically." "I'm not that interesting, really. I fix engines." "You also accidentally grope queens, and then lecture them about personhood while facing execution. That's fairly interesting." "One time, it happened one time." Again, memorable. A servant appeared, seeming to materialize from the garden itself, bearing plates of food. Marcus was surprised to see items that looked almost familiar, something resembling meat, vegetables in various colors, what might have been a potato or its cosmic cousin. "I had the chef research human cuisine," Valara explained. "I wanted you to feel comfortable." "That's incredibly thoughtful, thank you." "Don't thank me yet. I have ulterior motives." "What motives?" "I want information. Tell me about Earth. Real things, not diplomatic briefings. Tell me about your home." Marcus took a bite of the potato thing. It tasted like a potato that had been kissed by starlight, somehow, and considered where to begin. "I grew up in a small town," he started. "Population maybe 3,000. My father was a mechanic, which is why I became one. Machines made sense to me the way people sometimes didn't. My mother baked every Sunday pies mostly. Apple in fall, cherry in summer, whatever fruit was in season. Your mother baked for you. For everyone. It was her way of showing love. She'd send me to space with frozen pies. They didn't survive the journey well, but I ate every crumb. Valara listened intently, asking questions that revealed her genuine interest. She wanted to know about seasons, Nexara had none. About oceans, the concept of that much water fascinated her. About families eating together, Velen royalty apparently dined alone as a matter of protocol. In return, Marcus asked about her life. She spoke of inheriting the throne young, of being shaped into a symbol before she fully understood what she was losing, of 30 years of isolation in a fortress surrounded by thousands. You're lonely, Marcus observed at one point. I'm queen. Queens don't get lonely, they get busy. That's deflection. That's survival. She set down her utensil with a soft clink. Loneliness is weakness. Weakness is exploited. In my world, showing vulnerability means inviting attack. That sounds exhausting. It is. She looked at him, those violet eyes holding depths he was only beginning to glimpse. You're lonely too, aren't you? In your engine room with your machines. Yes, Marcus admitted. Machines don't judge. They don't want anything from you except proper maintenance. They're safe. We're similar then. Two lonely people who have found safety in isolation. Maybe, but I think you're braver. You're lonely despite being surrounded. I'm lonely because I chose to be. Valara's ears did that slight forward tilt he'd noticed before, something between interest and emotion. You see too much, Marcus Webb. Or maybe everyone else sees too little. They continued talking as the evening deepened, the suspended water droplets catching the light of Velen moons that rose outside the garden's transparent dome. Marcus found himself forgetting she was a queen. She was just Valara, sharp, intelligent, wounded, wonderful. The peace shattered when Seraphina burst into the garden, her usually composed face tight with worry. Your Majesty, the High Council has called an emergency session. They're demanding to discuss the human situation. Valera's expression hardened back into royal stone. Now. They claim it's urgent. Lord Kestros is leading the charge. Marcus stood as Valara did, tension instantly flooding his system. I should go. No, Valara's voice was firm. Stay here, finish your meal, I'll deal with the council. But if this is about me, it's about power, Marcus. You're just their excuse. She touched his arm briefly, a gesture so unexpected he froze. I'll handle this, trust me. Yes, he said, surprising himself with the certainty. She left with Seraphina, silver dress catching the light as she disappeared through the garden entrance. Marcus sank back into his chair, appetite gone. Kevris appeared from wherever he'd been lurking. Well, that's not good. The council. Lord Kestros specifically. He's been trying to marry his son to the queen for years. You've complicated his plans just by existing. I'm a mechanic. How can I complicate anything? By making her smile. By treating her like a person, by being the first person she's invited to dine privately with her in literally years. Kevris sat in Valara's vacated chair. You're a threat, Marcus, not to her, to them. To their plans, their power structures, their careful manipulations. Marcus stared at the abandoned meal, the beauty of the garden suddenly feeling ominous. What had he stumbled into? The council session was a disaster. Kevris delivered updates throughout the night like a war correspondent reporting from enemy lines. Lord Kestros had been brutal, denouncing Marcus as a corrupting influence, a violation of tradition, a danger to royal dignity. Lady Myra had been more diplomatic but equally damaging, citing scandals and protocol breaches. 3 other council members had voiced support for immediate expulsion, but Valara had held firm. She defended you like a lioness, Kevris reported, showing genuine admiration. Told them you were a bridge to human relations, not a scandal. Lord Kestros nearly had an aneurysm. What does that mean for me? It means you're still here for now, but Kestros won't quit. He's too invested in his plans. Those plans became terrifyingly clear 3 nights later. Marcus was asleep when alarms shattered the silence. Not asteroid warnings this time, but security alerts. Red lights flashed, corridors filled with running guards, and Kevris burst through his door with wild eyes. Get up, now. Assassination attempt on the Queen. Marcus was dressed and running before Kevris finished the sentence. They raced through corridors that had become familiar over the past days, his heart hammering with a fear he didn't fully understand. He barely knew Valara. They'd had one dinner, a few conversations. Why did his chest ache at the thought of her in danger? The secure room they reached was deep in the fortress's core, reinforced with harmonics that vibrated through his bones. Valara was there, alive and unharmed, surrounded by guards and advisors. Relief crashed through Marcus so intensely he had to steady himself against the wall. She saw him and something in her expression shifted, relief mirroring his own. Report, she commanded Seraphina. 3 assassins infiltrated the royal wing. They were carrying harmonic disruptors tuned to your biofrequency, your majesty, if they'd reached you. Seraphina didn't finish the sentence. Who sent them? We're interrogating the survivors, but the preliminary evidence points to Lord Kestros. Valara's expression darkened into something dangerous. Of course it does. There's more, Seraphina continued carefully. They had orders to kill the human too, Marcus Webb. He was specifically targeted. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Me? Why? You're the excuse, Valara said, her voice tight with controlled fury. Kill us both, blame your death on the scandal, use my death as a power vacuum. Kestros probably planned to install his son as regent. She turned to her captain of guards. Find him, find all of them, and bring them to me. By morning, the conspirators were in custody. Lord Kestros, 3 council members, and a network of loyalists who'd planned not just assassination but a full coup. Evidence was overwhelming. Communications, financial trails, weapon requisitions. The old lord had overplayed his hand. Valara summoned Marcus to her private chambers after the arrests. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her violet eyes, but there was steel in her spine. This is my fault, Marcus said before she could speak. If you hadn't accidentally touched me, Kestros would have found another excuse. He's wanted my throne for decades. You just accelerated his timeline. She sat heavily in a chair that seemed to embrace her, but he's given me an opportunity too. What opportunity? To change, to stop hiding. To stop letting fear of scandal control my reign. She looked at him with those galaxy eyes. You showed me something, Marcus. That being seen as a person doesn't have to be weakness. That connection isn't automatically vulnerability. I'm just a mechanic. I didn't show you anything. You showed me everything. She stood, approaching him slowly. I'm going to make a decision, one that will change everything. I need to know if you'll support it. What decision? I'm going to legitimize your presence. Officially. You'll be appointed as my advisor on human-Velen relations. It transforms you from a scandal into a policy. Marcus gaped. I'm not qualified. You're the most qualified person I know. You see people as people. You speak truth without agenda. You treated me with respect before you knew if it would save your life. She smiled, tired but genuine. Besides, you make me laugh. In 30 years of rule, I'd forgotten what laughter felt like. Your council will revolt. My council will adapt or be replaced. I'm tired of ruling by fear and tradition. I want to rule with courage and connection. She extended her hand. Will you help me? Marcus looked at her hand, elegant, steady, offered in partnership. He thought about his engine room, his safe solitude, his uncomplicated life of machines and maintenance. Then he thought about her laugh, her loneliness, the way she saw him as clearly as he saw her. He took her hand. Yes. The public announcement rippled through Velen and human space alike. Queen Valara, in a measured address broadcast across 17 systems, introduced her new advisor and outlined a vision for deeper human-Velen cooperation. She spoke of bridges being built, of understanding transcending species, of finding connection in unexpected places. Not everyone approved. Some Velen traditionalists protested. Some humans questioned the arrangement. But others, scientists, progressives, young people tired of old divisions, embraced the change. Marcus found his footing gradually. He wasn't a diplomat, and he never pretended to be. He was a mechanic who spoke plainly, who saw people clearly, who somehow made a queen feel human again. Valara valued that above political cunning. They worked together daily, but their evening meetings in the garden became something more personal. Conversations deepened into confidences, shared glances held longer, touches lingered imperceptibly. One night, 3 months after the assassination attempt, they sat watching the suspended water droplets catch moonlight. Valara's hand rested close to his on the table, so close. "Marcus," she said quietly. "Yes. Thank you for falling on me." He laughed, surprised. "Not my finest moment." "No. Your finest moment was after, when you apologized to me as a person, when you saw me." She turned to face him fully. "In 30 years no one saw me. You saw me in 30 seconds. You were worth seeing. So were you." She took a breath. "I'm going to do something that probably violates 100 protocols." "Only 100? I thought we were past caring." "We are," and she kissed him. It was soft, questioning, careful. Her lips were warm, her hand gentle on his cheek, her ears. Those beautiful pointed ears, tilted forward in that expression he now knew meant joy. When they parted, Marcus was grinning like an idiot. "That was definitely protocol violation," he managed. "The worst kind. The queen kissing a human commoner who once grabbed her ass. In my defense, that was an accident." "The kiss wasn't." "No," he agreed, pulling her closer. "No, it wasn't." They kissed again as water droplets sparkled around them, as moons rose over alien horizons, as somewhere in the cosmos, two species moved incrementally closer through the bridge of two hearts finding each other. Later, curled together on a garden bench that had materialized to accommodate them, Velen furniture was helpful that way, Valara murmured against his shoulder. "The galaxy will talk. Let them. It won't be easy. Humans and Velens together, political pressure, cultural differences. I know. You still want this, want us." Marcus lifted her chin, looking into those violet eyes that had first blazed at him with fury, and now held something far warmer. "I fixed engines for 3 years because machines were safe. They didn't hurt, didn't disappoint, didn't leave, but they didn't make me feel alive either." He touched her ear gently, tracing its elegant length. "You make me feel alive, Valara. Whatever challenges come, whatever protocols we shatter, I want to face them with you. Even if it started with you grabbing my ass. Especially because of that. It'll make a great story for our grandchildren." She laughed, that full, genuine laugh he loved. Grandchildren, moving fast mechanic. Just planning ahead. Good mechanics always plan ahead.